Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tens of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and this is the Secrets of the Torah, Part 2. So we continue from last week. To sum it all up, I'd say, as a Jew, it is your responsibility to learn the secrets of the Torah in order to bring the redemption in a merciful way. As a Gentile, you will learn this stuff from a non-idolatrous Jew for the sake of drawing your spark of Israel, if you are of Israel, to convert. What is the point of that? Only once the last lost triber returns home to Judah, as we discussed, will the redemption be complete. So we do not throw out a net for the sake of catching people or fishing for people. This is quite literally the opposite of what we were called to do. This is where you could see the counterfeit religions. We place this information before you, whether you are aware of it or not, and whoever it calls to, that person comes forward. The reason the journey is a tough one is because many who have not been called want to come forward for either fear of missing out, which is also incorrect, or because you have still the residue of the old churchy or messianic teachings in your file cabinet over there, and you believe that you are either something that you are not, or you need to do something that you weren't called to do. Either way, this is by perfect design from above, via the pawns of Christianity to keep the posers out and bringing the true sparks in. This is essentially, again, this is what the whole, the purpose of the whole Messianic movement about 70 plus years ago was trying to do. They were trying to open up a pathway to get Jews into Christianity. But the thing is, it goes both ways. So those that were really not Jews, spiritually speaking, if you will, might have fallen away, and there are plenty of those, but also those holy sparks, the lost 10 tribers from Christianity, managed to get into Judaism through that, you see? So even though it is completely tameh, the whole thing of the whole Christianity and Messianic movements, it's the klippah. We discuss this over and over again, but it is through that impurity that purity comes. That's a way in. So again, there are plenty that are coming in now because of their pit stops in the Messianic movement. So, something good comes out of it. That's always amazing. So again, we all have work to do, right? At the end of the day, your actions will speak for themselves. At the end of the day, you either go through this journey or you don't. How many times have I heard people say, "Oh yeah, I'm Israel, but I'm not going to keep this, I don't want to do that." Then you're not Israel. Then stop saying it. All right? That's it. You either do what God says or you don't. So again, there's no way that you don't have to go this journey. If you want to serve God, you serve God from wherever you are. It's perfectly fine. I just find it comical when people try to be something that they're not, and grasping onto straws for what reason. But when they're going to stand before God, he's going to, one look and be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why? I put you there for a reason." And if you want that journey, then you're going to have to claw your way through it. How badly do you want it? Right? But at the end of the day, everything is going to be in order, as in Hakol yeh beseder. You can write that down. Hakol beseder. How you doing? Hakol beseder. Everything is in order. That's what we say, in order, in God's order. So like I said, we all have work to do, but let's continue to draw the light and reflect it for the sake of our lost brothers and sisters, for the sake of rectifying the Shekhinah and unifying her with the Holy One, blessed be He. Now remember, the Shekhinah resides over each man and woman of Israel, and it is only when we are completely united that the Shekhinah can be restored. Okay, this is also the thing, and those who have gone through the conversion process can attest to this. You get through that, in other words, you are recognized as now a Jew, as officially Israel, according to the laws that God gave us in the 5 books of Moses. Undisputable. New understandings start to come to you. This is called an extra neshama, or rather unlocking your full neshama over there, that which you did not have, but something still called to you. You didn't understand what that was, but now you do. Anyway, so we go to the Ramchal's Adir B'Marom. Again, all these things I'm explaining, this is not to single anyone out. You are either here or you're there. You get it, you don't. Everything is okay. Again, everything is in God's order. This whole purpose is to put this out and see who comes and how they come. And not for me to see, for you to see, right? Did God, again, going back to the Akedah, did God need to say, oh, now I know that Abraham's a righteous dude because of it? No. Now Abraham knew, and Isaac knew, and Jacob, and now we know, and the entire heavenly realm knows. This is for everyone else. This is for you. You understand? Okay. So let's go to Ramchal's Adir B'Marom, page 37, that says, you should know that it is the main function of man to rectify the Shekhinah through his focus on his walk and actions, right? The halicha. Because anyone who does mitzvot, not in order to receive a reward, but even for the sake of rectifying his own soul, it is said of him in the Tikkunim, everything he does is as a slave, like we discussed, the difference between a slave and a son. But man should take it upon himself to rectify the Shekhinah, and those who do this are called true students of wisdom, Talmidei Chachamim. And the secrets of all of this is that the works that man does for God is the secret of working in the field, Avodat Hasadeh, okay, as written in Ecclesiastes 5:8, and the loftiness of the earth is in everything. Even the king is subservient to the field. Now, what does this remind us of? We're talking about fields and kings and what that. Now, me personally, Genesis 24:63. And Isaac went forth to pray in the field towards evening, and he lifted his eyes, and he saw, and behold, camels were approaching. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh. And it's funny, lasuach is, what do you call it? Sicha, conversation. Siach is bush, just so you know. But the burning bush was not called siach, it was called sneh, differently. Anyway, the English already did the translation for us because the Hebrew says to converse in the field. And who is he going to converse with by himself in the field, if not God? And what is this field but the field of Machpelah, where his mother Sarah was buried in the cave within the cave, as well as Adam and Eve. And this cave within a cave is one of the entrances to the Garden of Eden, which is why Adam chose that spot. We learned all about this. In the month of Elul, it is known that the king is in the field, not necessarily, Sedeh HaMachpelah, but this field, Malchut, right here. And what good would it do for us unless we had access to this field as well? But we're not only speaking of a physical location that is in Hebron today, but what was Isaac doing in the field? Praying, conversing, contemplating, toiling in the Torah he learned from his father, as well as in the yeshiva of Shem, son of Noah, and of Ever, son of Shem. Yeshivat Shem ve'Ever, right? Avram learned there, Yitzchak learned there, Yaakov learned there. Talmidei Chachamim indeed. So we continue with the Ramchal. Just like there are many chores or tasks or jobs in an actual field, right? Everyone's got their own. Think of the world as a field. Here, the how I started this whole thing. The world is a field. What job do you have in the field? As each one has their own responsibility depending on the job that they have been given, such is the rectification of the Shekhinah. You don't have to be a Jew to rectify the Shekhinah. You just have to do what you are supposed to do, and you are restoring balance and order to the universe. Like Star Wars. Where do you think they got that from? It's a highly Kabbalistic thing. The originals, though, anyway. Okay, and these jobs are the mitzvot that we each must do according to who we are and where we stand. But whoever takes it upon themselves to do everything and anything for the sake of the rectification of the Shekhinah, this one transcends to take the light from the place that the Sitra Achra cannot go. Once you have the purest of intentions, then all of a sudden you are given that ability to go where the information and the knowledge and the wisdom that you receive is incorruptible, and draw that down, and then the light spreads through you. And that is a place that we all strive to get to, is it not? because that is where all those who remain will be. After the whole balagan, that's where everyone's going to be. But as for now, we are helping the process along, right? We're preparing the ground. It's like, okay, you're going to have, there's a marathon. We don't know when, but we know it's coming up soon. So what do you start to do? You have to start training. At first, if you're going to start running, you're going to want to puke your guts out, right? But after a while, you build up endurance. So when they say, okay, it's happening now, let us go, you're ready to go because you've practiced, you've trained yourself. You understand? Same thing in the army. Like I said, kashe b'imunim, kal bakrav. It is difficult. They make it difficult during the training. Kal, easy, bakrav, during battle. So you know what you're doing. It's second nature. You train all the time. You don't know when the next conflict is going to come. But when it comes, boom, your training kicks in and you are ready to go. You live it, right? In the States, right? Once a Marine, always a Marine, right? You never stop thinking like that, right? You're always ready. You're always assessing. You're always on the go. This is how we are called to live according to the Torah, because you never really know exactly when you're going to need to put that into play. But guess what? It's all the time. And your entire life is what is going to save you for that moment. Okay. So the more corrections we do now, the less we will need to be will need to be corrected when Mashiach comes. Because remember, although that it is a wonderful day when Mashiach will arrive, there is also the great and awesome day of judgment. And you do not want to be found wanting over there, especially if you were given the opportunity and the tools and you squandered it. And I got something to tell you. Everyone has been given opportunities and tools. God doesn't just toss people here and says, go, fail. I set you up to fail. No, God doesn't do that. I brought you here because you serve a purpose. And I'm going to give you everything you need. Because if you come to me and say, hey, how could I didn't know. And then you're going to see the points in your life where you did know, but you choose to ignore them. Or the things you could have done and you shouldn't have done, and so on and so forth. The second thing one must do, in addition to working on rectifying the Shekhinah, is to complete the education or learning from the Ruach, the spirit of Mashiach. Like we said in last class, this is from Isaiah 11:2. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, heroism, knowledge, and fear of the Lord. And what are all these known as? Where do we get all these into one place? Rectifying Torah, the Secrets of Torah. This. I mean, again, this is explaining what the Secrets of Torah are. That's what this class is. All the other classes, some of this included, they're all included in there. But now here, opening your eyes to everything that now you can see and hopefully have been seeing. So we are currently doing this. And your homework is to pay attention and take notes to implement this consciousness into your daily life until it becomes who you are, because it actually is who you are, and it is what we all strive to be as well. But if we do not, then this is what the prophet Jeremiah was talking about in 9:23. But let him that boasts exalt in this, that he understands and knows me, for I am the Lord who practices kindness, justice, and righteousness on the earth, for in these things I delight, says the Lord. Do you understand the test here right now? Do you understand that this right here, what God said through Jeremiah, is a complete test? If you boast about knowing God in any way, you don't know God. That's the bottom line. I know God. Let me tell you, I know. Not if you're talking like that, you don't. This is also what Isaiah was complaining about in 40 verse 6. A voice says, call, and it says, what shall I call? All flesh is grass, and all its kindness is like the blossom of the field. I have heard from the Lord. The Holy Spirit is telling me that. Sure, the Holy Spirit is telling you that. And then look at the bottom line. Look at your life, or look at that person's life that claims all these ridiculous claims. Look how they live their lives. Look at the bottom line and say, okay, use that as an example of things not to do. Go back to what you actually have in front of you, and you will actually see success. Now listen what it said about these in Tikkunei Zohar number 69. These are like the beasts of the field that don't look or know anything other than the grass or straw of the Torah, which is the pshat, which is the outer klipa and the chaff. As said, mutz vatevin piturim min hamaaser, the chaff and the straw are exempt from tithing, because the chachmei Torah, the wise of the Torah, ba'alei harazin, the masters of its secrets, are throwing the grass and the chaff outside, but eat of the wheat of the Torah, which is on the inside. Now the Gra explains right there, although every aspect of Torah is holy, this compared to that is the outer shell. It's the same concept of, there's Rachel on the inside, and then there's Leah on the around her, and then there's the other handmaidens around them. They're all holy, mothers of the tribes, but they still come in levels and layers. So the pshat, so says the Gra, compared to the sod, is like the klipa, and we know what the klipa is, right? But again, he's making an explanation over here. So we've discussed how the secrets of the Torah, Razei Torah, are what is going to get Israel out of the Galut, out of the exile. And from the Zohar Chadash, it says regarding the Spirit of God hovering, that these are the 70 branches of the Torah. Immediately afterward, in the next verse, in Genesis 1:3, it says, Vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. That light is a salvation for Israel, because as we discussed in previous classes, the tov avo, the chaos that preceded this, the tov avo is the exile. So at that time, once the light shines, God will take Israel out of the exile and cover them with the branches. Exile still could be there, but God's still going to cover them with the branches. We'll get to this later, in a sense. The Gra calls the Vayehi O, let there be light. This light, he calls it Raz. Razei Torah, right? This is the hidden stuff. As it is the same numerical value as Or. And there was light, there was Raz, okay? Same numerical value. That's a remez right there. You see, when we are learning the secrets of the Torah, we are learning the light of the Torah, and that is the same light that God created in the beginning. As I discussed, when you learn these things, it does more for your neshama than it does for your mind. You might not, it's not analytical thinking. It's not this at all. It's spiritual thinking. And so that's why it doesn't matter. You need to know the basics of the Torah, and I can't stress it enough, and I'm not even near done stressing it. But you don't need to be a Torah scholar in order to learn this, especially right now in this day and age. That's what I'm saying. We are very fortunate to be alive during this time, because all these things have been opened to us, and the Rashbi said of this 2,000 years ago. So we're living very exciting times. So, when we're learning the secrets of the Torah, we are learning the light of the Torah, and this is that same light that God created in the beginning that separated the light from the darkness. And what is without the dark? What is the pure light without the darkness? This is the tree of life. This is the Spirit of God and the light that is hovering over the chaos in exile, covering Israel in their times of need. In Tikkunei Zohar number 6, it said when Elijah turns to the Rashbi, who accessed this light and enabled this tree to be revealed in its time, essentially becoming one with this tree, right? Etz chaim hi lamachazikim ba. It is a tree of life to those who cleave to her. Cleave to the tree, become part of the tree. Just as all of us strive to be and do, and can become of him paving the way initially. Because of him paving the way initially. So in other words, just like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov paved those ways, those axes are now open to the throne of God because of what they did. So because of what the Rashbi did, we are now reaping its benefits today, and soon the entire world will when Mashiach comes. Now Elijah said, "You are a tree who grew and became strong in Torah, and within your branches many birds or souls will dwell." You are a tree. Man was likened to a tree, right? Truth. As written in Daniel 4:8, the tree grew and became strong, and its height reached the sky, and its appearance was seen to the ends of all the earth. Its branches were beautiful, and its fruit was plentiful, and on it was sustenance for all. Under it the beasts of the field took shade, and in its branches dwelt the birds of the field, of the heavens, and all the flesh was nourished from it. Elijah asks, and how many sons of men will be nourished by it below, from the connection you have established? He asks the Rashbi. This will be revealed in the final generation. This is his answer. As written in Leviticus 25:1, and you shall sanctify the 50th year and proclaim freedom for the slaves throughout the land for all who love it, for all who live on it, So the Gra says that they will be redeemed by the studying of the Zohar. Now again, when I study other things that are not Zohar per se, it's all derived from the Zohar. You understand? So it's essentially studying the Zohar. And furthermore, in Tikkun 69 of the Tikkunim, Rabbi Shimon said, friends, of course the Holy One, blessed be He, agrees with us for the upper and lower worlds to be connected. This is what God wants, right? Yesod Malchut. This is what God said. So he's like, yes, we and God are speaking the same language. Blessed is the generation in which it is revealed, as it all will be renewed by the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu, to fulfill the verse in Ecclesiastes, Mashayahu Sheyeh, right? Moses will be again. What was is what will be, meaning Moshe, Mashayahu Sheyeh. And from Psalms 34:14, from his dwelling place he oversees all the inhabitants of the earth. Moses, from his dwelling place, Mimechon Shivto Hishgiach, El Kol Yoshvei Haaretz. Mem Mimachon Shin Shivto, hey Hishgiach. Moses is overseeing all the inhabitants of the earth. And that was in Psalms 34:14. Here, Psalms 144:15. Ashrei ha'am shekach halo, Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai lo av. We say this before we start the Ashrei. All right, let's go. Ashrei. Praiseworthy is the people that has this. Praiseworthy is the people whose God is the Lord. Now, is the verse we say, so this is the verse that we also say right before we carry the Torah from and to the ark, and you're going to love this one. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo. The word shekacha is the same numerical value as Moses, as in praiseworthy is the people that has Moses. What? Praiseworthy is the people whose God is the Lord. Amen. Our study moves on, but I'm going to read you the rest of this because it's important and informative. The Zohar continues. Sometimes, again, if this is how much it says in the book, right, this is how much you're actually getting, because I'm taken from everywhere and I'm explaining these things to you. So the Zohar continues, of him, Moses, it said in Ecclesiastes 1:4, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth endures forever. Dor holech v'dor ba. And there's no generation with less than 600,000, like on Mount Sinai. For of him it is said in Psalms 105:8, Zachar le'olam brito davar tziva le'elef dor. He remembered his covenant forever, the word he had commanded to the 1,000th generation, and his expansion is in every generation and generation, in every righteous and wise man that toils in Torah up until 600,000 to complete everyone's blemishes, defects. This is what Moshe is currently doing in all of the 600,000 souls that were there by Mount Sinai in every single generation. As it said of him in Isaiah 53:5, but he was pained because of our transgressions. Because, why? Moses is equal to all 600,000. How many times do we read this in the pshat, in the plain text? God said, I'm taking them all out, I'm starting with you. And we needed Moses to complete all the work, even though everyone did the work. Moses was the one to do it. Everyone gave and built the Mishkan. Moses by himself had to take it up, take it down, take it up, take it down, for 7 days until it was done. So he's equal to us all. As each generation goes and generation come, the final generation, he will come as he did before, right? The first Redeemer will also be the last Redeemer. The last redemption will also be as the first redemption. Because as we have been learning, the premise of this entire study, Acharit Kireshit, God will redeem us just as he did, right? And he's going to send Moses to complete the job. And I know, as odd as this sounds, especially most of you coming from Christian backgrounds, Moses is not the Mashiach. He is a Goel, he is a Redeemer, of course. But he will be teaching these secrets of the Torah to both Messiahs, Ben Yosef and Ben David. Now we can return to the book. As the Gra comments on this by the secrets of the Torah, that is the tree of life, they will come out of, by the tree of life, they will come out of exile, and Moses, the Redeemer, will be born and be revealed through the learning of this illuminated Torah. And all this will happen in the 5th millennia, meaning our time right now. We are almost at the end of the 5th, going into the 6th. So, just one thing I want to say about Moses being born. There are many tikkunim that we need to do for our nefesh, for our ruach, for our neshama, and also for our guf, our body, because our body is not pure, right, by default. And that's why every single time we do, why do we have to do the netilat yadayim? Why do we go to a mikveh? Why do we practice dinei tahara, right, taharat hamishpacha, the purity, the family purity laws? Very, very important. Fundamental Jewish laws, because we need to rectify our body. So as long as your body still needs to go through tikkunim, the body might come back, or parts of the body. It's weird. Okay, let me explain to you like this. Moshe Rabbeinu's body was perfect. In fact, so perfect that if you listen to those teachings on Vezot HaBracha, I believe I was in the synagogue that I grew up in Ra'anana. His neshama argued with God that it doesn't want to leave his body. Come, sit beneath my throne. I love this man. He is so pure. I want to be right here. So that's why I don't necessarily think that it's Moshe in a new body. I think it's Moshe and in his original body. And I'm learning plenty of other things that kind of backs that thing up, okay? Also because he's currently buried in the plot of the tribe of Gad. In fact, that's where they set up, and they were the warrior tribe of Israel, and they chose that tribe to protect where Moses is buried. Very cool. Another study. Anyway, further on the matter of the rising of Israel through learning the wisdom of the truth, the Ramchal, in the first tikkun of his 70 tikkunim, said, of this it was said in Isaiah 51:18. She has no guide out of all the sons she bore, and she has no one who takes her by the hand out of all the sons she raised. Now, why does she have no guide? Because there is no one to hold her hand. As for the Baalei Kabbalah, the masters of Kabbalah, it is said of them in Psalms 31:25, Chizku ve'yametz levavchem, kol hame'echalim la'Adonai. Strengthen yourselves, and he will give your heart courage. Who? All who hope to the Lord. Why does it say it of them? Why does it say this of them? Because they're the only ones who are actually contributing to the rising of Israel. Truth be told, there's the survival of Israel, and then there's the rising of Israel. Are you following tradition because I'm a Jew and my dad did this and his dad and so on and so forth, or are we working towards something? Unfortunately, most Jews today don't even know what they're doing. They just do. Orthodox Jews, and again, no disrespect, if they would not be doing it, there would be no Jews. But the time for passivity is done. You have to understand what it is you're doing. You have to actively seek. You can't just be living in this realm of, oh yeah, and I'm Jewish. What is this Jewish? You are a Jew. I never liked it. I'm Jewish. Is that like kind of a Jew? You're Jewish? No. I'm a Jew. And I got responsibilities to do. And whoever cleaves to this receives supernal assistance in the form of supernal strength. because he is the one who holds up the Shekhinah. Hence, strengthen yourselves, and he, God, will give your heart courage. As written in Micah 7:8, rejoice not against me, my enemy. Although I have fallen, I will rise. Although I will sit in darkness, the Lord is a light to me. Hashem Oli. Because when the Shekhinah went into exile, she became afraid until the king told her, go and do not be afraid. Don't worry about this. I got this as part of the plan. We need this to happen. For although you are on the outside, I will be a light to you, the Shekhinah from the inside always. As it is said, although I sit in darkness, the Lord is a light to me. And it is because of this light that the Shekhinah gains strength, and the world is not destroyed. In Tikkun number 39, he says, It is for certain that now is the time to raise up the Shekhinah and bring her back to her former glory. For this is Kabbalah, the secrets of the Torah from the side of the tree of life that has become known to the world. He just wrote this again 300 years ago. This is the Ramchal. Now is the time to return the Shekhinah to her husband, he continues. And at that same time, it is said in Isaiah 9, for the land shall be full of knowledge of the Lord, knowing the Lord. Knowing. That's knowing. That's no dispute. That's no opinion. That is undisputable fact. That is truth, emet. Because as there is an awakening below, there becomes an awakening above in the same manner. Through the awakening that is happening through this light, meaning the study of Kabbalah, the supernal light will begin to be revealed in the world, and through it Israel will be redeemed. In the preface to the 70 Tikkunim, it says, but the rectification of all things is in the secret of the Torah, which is internal from the inside, right? From the side of the tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil. One of which is one to her mother, as we read in the Pasuk, and the other is the pure one of she who bore her. This is from Song of Songs 6:9. My dove, my perfect one, is but one. She is one to her mother. She is pure of she who bore her. Daughters saw and praised her, queens, concubines, and they lauded her, right? One is without conflict, and one is without pilpul. Now, what is this word pilpul? Okay, it's also very important. It's a very important word. Okay, it's a Torah study word. Pilpul is a very common word used in particularly the study of Talmud. Okay, it comes from the word pilpel. What is pilpel? It means pepper, right? But it means spicy hot pepper, right? So while learning with a chavruta, your buddy, from the word chaver, right? In yeshiva, you sit there with you and another guy facing you. You got your gemaras open, and you go like this, and you just and you just yell at each other. But it's all in love, right? It's not like I'm not angry at it, but just like you get into it, right? And you get all the questions and everything. So that's a chavruta. That's how you learn chavruta. Or you can sit next to each other, whatever, or via Zoom, right? So if one of the two, let's say, asks a really good and really difficult question, like we said, the kashya, right, a kushya, you would call it kushya mefulpelet. That's a spicy question. Like, that's what that means. So from now on, if I say pilpul, right, that means a good and spicy challenge, one worthy of toiling to find the answer. Okay, so one is without conflict, and the other is without pilpul. One is without challenge, right? There's conflict, there's challenge. To her mother is from the side of the light and not darkness, because from her side, the side of the Shekhinah, is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because from that side, the pilpul stands to the right and left sides, to the light and to the dark. But from the inside, she is the pure one of who she bore her. And that is Kabbalah, essentially. You have its multiple dimensions, right? But even on the pure parts, you have parts of the dark, of the light, and of the dark. It's all a matter of separating them, giving you this discernment. So now, because we are currently living within the tree of knowledge of good and evil, this is our world. we are destined to suffer some of the birth pangs of Mashiach, as written in Daniel 12:1. Now at that time, Ubayetahi, the great prince, Michael, the great prince, who stands over the children of your people, the children of Israel, will be silent. Michael, right, Michael, the great angel who stands on the side of mercy, he's going to be silent. Wait a minute. So who's going to be protecting us? In other words, obviously God protects us directly, but he also sends his angels. But he says, listen, you're not going to get the side of chesed when these things are coming on you. You're not going to have mercy when this has to happen. He will be silent, and it will be a time of distress that never was since a nation existed until that time. And at that time, your people will escape everyone who is found inscribed in the book. So I think it's also important to note here, it says, Va'ita et tzara, distress, trouble. But it doesn't necessarily say disaster. But I think the kind of, again, because when was it a time of distress that nothing essentially bad happened, but Israel were on the brink of annihilation? It was the story of Purim, right? That's why V'nafochu, and that's what we're actually taking into the world to come. That's the only thing that's going to be there. Everything else goes away except for Purim, because that is the hidden, Esther and Nistal, the secrets, right? So again, distress. But all you need is distress to start testing what you're made of, right? And when people are put under pressure, under distress, we either rise to the challenge or we act like children, I'm a child. I'm not, sometimes, if Anarina smacks me upside the head, no, she doesn't do that. But if she, get it, oh yeah, you got to focus and rise to the challenge. But sometimes the world falls in on you and then what happens, right? So what do? This is why we train, right? Kashe ba'imunim, kal bakrav. Don't forget that. So again, he's saying here, it's going to be the most stressful time that that your people, your children of Israel, have ever been under, more so than any other nation in the history of the world. Book of Daniel. Not my opinion. This is what it says. Your people will escape. All the people? No. Everyone who is found inscribed in the book. Okay. So when the angel Michael represents the right side, which is mercy, will be silent, because of the silence, all of Israel will go through distress. And out of all the people who are the ones that are going to escape, those inscribed in the book of life. And what is the book of life? Right? What is this book? It's the book of life. This is also the tree of life. The side of the tree of life, which is written in Isaiah 31:5, like flying birds, so shall the Lord of hosts protect Jerusalem, protecting and saving, passing over and rescuing. And this is for the sake of Baalei Kabbalah, who will succeed in saving the life of Mashiach ben Yosef. Now we've learned that Mashiach ben Yosef represents the tree of knowledge of good and evil, while Mashiach ben David represents the tree of life. But through the learning of the secrets of the Torah, which is the tree of life in this world, which is the tree of knowledge, the tree of life in this world, which is the tree of knowledge, we are essentially rectifying this world, right? The tree of knowledge, thereby saving Mashiach ben Yosef from certain death, and by the hands of Armilus Harasha, the evil Armilus, who is the false Messiah from Rome. Again, I'll explain what I said. Learning the tree of life in this world, which is the tree of, we are currently in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When we attach ourselves to the tree of life within the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we now save Mashiach ben Yosef, who is in the tree of knowledge of good and evil of this world. So we continue, and again, maybe I'll talk about this, but basically from Rome is going to arise a very charismatic guy. It says Rome is going to accept him as Messiah like that. He's going to do one sign, and they're going to accept him. The Jews won't accept him. They're like, no, we're clearly told in Deuteronomy, signs do not impress us. You could do God said, do anything, the most incredible things, but if you don't have these specific characteristics, and if you don't pass these challenges, you are not Mashiach. So you can bring the sun up and down, it does, or turn water into wine, which, like I said, rabbis do it today. We don't believe it because we're commanded by God, who says, I am testing you. And go now see who falls for it, and understand that the line in the sand is being drawn, and whoever has to be here is here, and whoever has to be there is there. We continue in Tikkun 61. Oh, so I'm sorry, one more thing. So this guy is supposed to come up and fight against Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef was destined to die, but Moshe Rabbeinu already started praying. Again, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rashbi, and now because of the Kabbalah, Mashiach ben Yosef is not going to die. So again, Tikkun 61. We'll talk about that another time. But come and see, says Ramchal, the pshat of the Torah, the simple text, is both light and darkness. How can we say this? What, you're saying that the Torah is both light and darkness? Again, there are levels, dimensions, aspects, understanding to the Torah. How could this be light and darkness? Because a Jew can read the simple text and learn how to live it. That's light. While another Jew learning New Testament stuff can read the same text and connect it to Jesus. There's your darkness. You take the same text that we're reading. How could it be darkness? Oh, look, it says this, and that's what it means. Surely you know this because of the New King James translation. Do you know how many times Christians and Messianics try to teach me Hebrew? Seriously, this is what the Hebrew means. From the text. And obviously, they get it so wrong that a response could not even be given because the entire premise, basis, context, language, translation, motivation, doctrines, and faith are absolutely so comically wrong. I could only say, really, good luck with that. It's okay. I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm dealing with you guys who are actually here who say like, yep, that. Why? Because you saw it for yourself. So we're all speaking from experience here. I hope I'm speaking to like-minded individuals. That's all I can say. Again, I'm not expecting everybody. No one is expecting everybody. God's not expecting everybody. Only the ones that count, right? The fraction. And so if Israel only hold on to the pshat, which is a mixture of good and evil, depending on the perspective, of course, they will have to go through the birth pangs of Mashiach. But the secrets within the text, that is all light. As David said, Psalms 18:29, for you light my lamp, the Lord my God does light my darkness. So you see, it is the secrets of Torah that will illuminate the pshat, as we discussed, and then later on, the pshat will give us an understanding for everything, but that's only when Mashiach arrives. Now, since most of us have been through this idolatry at one point or another, and thank God we have seen the true light, and have either gotten out or been thrown out, how do Christians and Messianics view Kabbalah? How do they view Kabbalah? As witchcraft. Right? How many from all the places? Oh, that's this Jewish mysticism, witchcraft, and the devil. Okay? They won't touch it. And this is the stuff that actually will bring Mashiach and the redemption and mercy. Look who's bringing it, and look who's calling it witchcraft. This is written years ago. Not 2000. And if they won't touch it, but all but guarantees that there is no way that they could possibly understand what they are reading in the translated simple text. So while we continue to go through the entire Pardes with an emphasis on the hidden, we will be brought to repentance and will be spared from these birth pangs. And Ramchal's Knowing God's Plan, where he tells you God's plan, it is said the foundation of all creation in the matter of the revelation of revelation of unity, ichud, right? Gilui ha'ichud, between God and everything, and between us and everything, and everyone. All is one. And this is the entire purpose of work. And the tree of knowledge is the root concerning judgment of the Torah and pilpula, right? Its challenges, because the whole purpose there is to inspect and discern between good and evil, between right and wrong, what is allowed and what is not, and of course between what is pure and what is impure. But the tree of life is the root concerning unity, which has been active from the very beginning of creation until the very end, to bring all of God's goodness to Israel for the sake of them cleaving to the tree of life. While the world has not been corrected, this aspect will remain hidden. So long as it's still a mess, not everyone is going to know this. Again, we are still uncovering this. We are scratching the surface, right? Just getting an idea. Why are we scratching the surface? Because we've looked everywhere else. We're just looking around, and through our discernment, it's like, no, I don't have to keep digging down there. I don't have to keep digging. I'm not looking at a place that has so many falsities for truth, because maybe it's hidden under there. No, there's one place that is unarguably the truth, and that is the Torah, where every other religion is built upon. So go to the source wholeheartedly, and everything else will fall away. Nothing will hold up to it. But the time of the revelation of the tree of life is the revelation of Mashiach ben David, because then at that point already all the evil has been corrected, and the unity will be revealed through God pouring his Spirit upon all flesh. God pours his Spirit upon all flesh. Everybody knows everything. There's no more lies. There's no more deceit. There's no more anger. There's no more petty squabbling. None of that stuff. We're actually going to feel really stupid, humbled, rather, to see how connected we actually are to one another. And so, all those who deal in the pshat of the Torah and pilpula, let me try and figure out this, what is God trying to say? Are indeed rectifying the tree of knowledge through separating and discerning the good from evil. However, and who is this? This is learning the Talmud, learning the halachot. What is God trying to tell me? They're doing a rectification for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is what we were called to do. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did it. This is what we are called to do right now. But in addition to that, and that is the responsibility of every Jew, however, the level of those who deal in Kabbalah is much higher, because they are dealing with the tree of life directly, which is the Torah of Moses, which unites and returns the evil to good. So great that you can separate it, but you can't keep it separate forever. Separate it, learn your halacha, know how to live, make that separation. This is actually good. This is actually evil, because today people got it backwards. No one knows, and even if you think you know, if you don't learn Kabbalah, if you don't have that light to illuminate, what is the light? Is this an expiration date? Read the fine print. Good, evil, separate it, and then take that evil and turn it to good. Whoa, that's some heavy stuff. That is some Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai stuff. This is what he's saying over here. Dealing with Kabbalah, you are dealing directly with the tree of life, which is the hidden Torah of Moses, which unites and returns the evil into good. And through doing this, Israel merit the light. So many layers, so much work. I cannot do everything. You cannot do everything. But if I do what I need to do here, and you do what you need to do there, and everyone who actually has understanding of what I'm saying here does what they need to do where they are, and walk their walk, not someone else's walk, and do it in purity, God knows, Israel is going to merit the light, and we're going to be okay, and everything is going to be beseder, in order. So remember, we discussed this, only through the learning of the secrets can we turn darkness into light. Or as the Ramchal said in the first opening of his 138 openings of wisdom, God's supreme unity is the foundation of faith and the root of wisdom. For the entire wisdom of truth, Chochmat Emet, which is called its Kabbalah, Chochmat Emet, comes only to demonstrate the truth of faith. It comes to explain how all the created realms and beings and everything that happens in the universe all emerge from the supernal will. How everything is governed in the right way according to God, to bring the entire cycle of creation to complete perfection in the end, right? Remember, if we took this as the cycle of creation, if we hold the candle like this, it's perfect, right? But as soon as we add time and space in there, now we have these 6,000 years. If we're looking at individual points like, oh no, how could this be? Great points, hard points. But if we look at it all as one complete thing, that is the revelation of God's unity. Everything was perfect. Even that which you thought was bad was actually good, because where did it come from? The component details of this wisdom provide detailed understanding of all the laws and processes by which the universe is governed. You will understand how everything goes down. Is there going to be free will after that? I don't know. If you understand how everything, why would you dare not go according to God's will? In Adir B'Maon, page 22, he says straight up, Hanidbak besefer hazohar ein tzarich lo chavlei Mashiach. Nidbak, it comes from devik. Devik is glue. What does it say in Genesis, right? V'davak beishto, and the man shall cleave, be glued to his wife. This is what it is. He who is glued to the Sefer HaZohar, ein tzarich, ein does not, tzarich need, lo for him, lamed vav, chavlei Mashiach. Chevel is the ropes of Mashiach, meaning the birth pangs of Mashiach. He who cleaves to the Zohar, the secrets of Torah, direct access to the tree of life, does not need to go through the birth pangs of Mashiach. We see this in Re'ea Mehemana, the faithful shepherd, part of the Zohar conversations with Moses. In Parasha Naso, the Zohar will not be discovered but a long time after it is written, because its function is in its time. This is what it says over there 2,000 years ago, meaning that Israel will flee, run away, hide, be concealed. You choose. Within the secrets of this Zohar, because its true function will only come into play at the end of days during the times of Melech HaMashiach, King Messiah. That's when all truth is going to be revealed. Every question you've ever had is going to be revealed. Everything. I can't imagine everything but that. The Zohar is the secret, The Zohar is the secret of Ir Miklat, the city of refuge, to escape during the exile. And all who go there will not go through Chavlei Mashiach, the troubles that precede the coming of Mashiach, the birth pangs, which is a different escape, like that of repentance, which is only awakened during the times of trouble. You don't have to be in times of trouble to learn Zohar in order to escape. You could learn it when times are good. You should always learn it. So let me explain what I just read, okay? And give you some understanding. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, where did the Zohar come from? The Rashbi. Who's a Rashbi? He was a student of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, along with 9 others of the greatest sages of that era, were captured by the Romans and slowly tortured to death in front of the eyes of all their students. They made them watch. These rabbis were everything to them. They're guiding light, and they say, you watch what we're going to do to your guiding light. Whether it was pouring boiling lead down their throats, chopping them into pieces, or slowly filleting their skin right off their bodies with hot rakes, which is what they did to Rabbi Akiva. One of the stories is they would just peel off his skin, and he didn't feel it. He didn't feel it at all. Why? Because whenever Rabbi Akiva he was the only one, actually, it says went to the full Pardes and came back. There's a story about that. 4 rabbis did that. One became a heretic, one became a heretic, one killed himself, one went crazy, and Rabbi Akiva was the only one that came out unharmed. In any case, so they were peeling his skin off, and he wasn't really feeling it, because he whenever he prayed and he was in his high spaces, his spirit was barely in his body. You understand? He was so detached from this world. But every time he had to come back to his body because there was still work to be done. But at that moment, it says that as he was dying, he was so happy. He was happy. This rabbi, they're peeling your skin off all your life. How are you happy? He goes, I don't have to hold on. I can let go, and I can finally go. But there was the story which pierced my soul. When they ripped the skin off over here from his forehead up back from his head, which is where you put the tefillin on, that he felt, and he screamed in agony, because you remove the part of your body that connects you for the tefillin of the head. Anyway, another times, these are all the stories about how they all died. So Yeah. Anyway, so then he said Shema Yisrael, and then he passed. So may their memory be blessed. May their deaths be avenged, and those who did this to them, and all those who would follow in their footsteps over the years, may their souls never, ever find rest for all of eternity. Amen. The reason these 10 tzaddikim were destined to die was because of the sin of the 10 brothers selling Joseph. A piece of the soul of every brother was manifested in one of these tzaddikim. For instance, I believe it was Yisachar was in Rabbi Akiva, and so on and so forth. Rabbi Akiva, don't forget, Rabbi Akiva, his father was a ger, his father was a convert. Rabbi Akiva grew up despising any kind of Judaism or Yiddishkeit, anything. He hated the Torah. When he was 40, he only learned to read. And then he became, from that point, Rabbi Akiva, because of Rachel, his wife, Tzadikah. Look what a woman can do. Look what a woman can do, and look what a woman can do. Okay? So, a piece of the soul of every one of the brothers manifested in these tzaddikim, and these are called Aseret Harugei Malchut, the 10 royal martyrs, I guess. Rabbi Shimon, who was on spiritual par with these titans, was expelled from his community beforehand. Remember, they were all over Israel. He was expelled beforehand because he refused to make concessions with the Romans, so those cowards in leadership, not these 10, chas v'shalom, they told him to leave, which he did. Fortunately for him and for us and for the entire world, once they began to go after the Jews, he got word of this and he fled with his son, Rabbi Elazar, to a cave in the northern part of the country called Peki'in, right next to where he is buried on Mount Meron, where the tragedy happened commemorating the day of his death. They were in this cave for 12 whole years, while the Romans were scouring the countryside and the lands to try and find anybody. Where is this Rashbi, They ate carobs. Carobs. You're not supposed to eat too many of those. Google that. It will not do you good. It could sustain you for very little, but no. They ate carobs, and God created a small stream right outside the cave for them to drink water. I said 12 years in a cave. They had nothing more than the shirts on their back, which is what they wore only on Shabbat. See, the rest of the time when they were learning Torah, they would dig holes in the ground, and they would sit in the ground, and they would cover themselves up until their necks in sand and lay out their clothes. And on Shabbat and Chagim, that's when they wore the one and only, robe that they had. So, 12 years. That's all they did. They just learned Torah. The Rashbi had achieved levels that no one has been able to beforehand. In fact, no one since also. For instance, he was able to ascend to the spiritual levels without the physical action. What does this mean? He didn't have tefillin to put on, right? But he was able to spiritually make the rectification that would otherwise only be able to be done through the action of putting on tefillin. Amazing. Same goes for everything else. And if you might be thinking, how could they learn Torah with no books? Then let me tell you this. They never learned Torah with books back in the day. All of these scholars and students, they knew everything by heart, backwards and forwards. And not only the written word from the entire Tanakh, but every single halacha, and all the oral Torah as well. Everything ever compiled, they knew all these things. Not to mention, all the extra biblical texts, of course. Long story short, that kind of wisdom and understanding is incomprehensible in today's world. Over the course, and this is 2,000 years ago, over the course of those 12 years, the Rashbi, along with his son Rabbi Elazar, compiled the Zohar, the hidden secrets of the Torah and the original Torah of Moses, the Tree of Life Torah, if you will. He was able to unlock a pathway to the Tree of Life and to draw from it. Anyway, the Rashbi got word from above that he could now leave the cave as the Romans have left Israel, but not before slaughtering almost all of its Torah scholars. When he left, they ran into a man working in the field, and in a rage, the Rashbi asked him, "How could you possibly be working and not learning Torah? What is wrong with you?" To which the man responded, "Well, because, Got to work for a living, right? Got a family to feed, so I got to work. Immediately, the Rashbi burned the guy with his eyes. It said he looked at him, burnt him, and set his field on fire. Right then a voice came down from heaven, said, "Get back into the cave," where he and his son remained for another year just to come down. The entire year was meant to descend their spiritual consciousness, because otherwise they could not be in this world. And they had to be in the world because they had to impart that knowledge and wisdom that they gained from above to the people who compiled it to the Zohar. They were on such a high level that they could will things into being and couldn't understand the concept of working over studying Torah. Afterwards, of course, they calmed down and everything, right? Because of that extra year. But once the year was done, they rejoined a few of their friends who managed to survive and shared with them the Zohar that we are learning till this day. Now, that's the story in a nutshell. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Let me just repeat what we said before. He who cleaves to the Zohar, the Secrets of Torah, which is direct access to the tree of life, does not need to go through the birth pangs of Mashiach. Time of distress. Remember? There's going to be distress, but then where are you going to put yourself based on your distress? But if you cleave to this, you won't be distressed. You will remain calm. See, we don't know what's going to happen. If it's our time to go, when it's our time to go, it's our time to go. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with me, with my family. I don't know what's going to happen here in Israel. We have forecasts. That's the best that we can do based on prophecy that we have written, based on other people's intellect and understanding, based on, like I said, astronomy, planetary alignments, and so on and so forth. Many other, we have a well of knowledge, if you will. But still everything is a forecast. Why? Because it's God's world, and like we learned, He could do whatever He wants, whenever He wants. But apparently this is what He wants. So this is where we are right now, uncovering these secrets to you. So we see in the Faithful Shepherd, again, Parashat Nasoah, the Zohar will not be discovered but a long time after it is written. This is why I'm sitting here telling you this, putting my faith in this, because its function is in its time, meaning that Israel will flee, run away, hide, or be concealed within the secrets of this Zohar, within the secrets, because its true function will only come into play at the end of days. Now the Zohar is the Ir Miklat, the city of refuge, to escape during the exile. And all who will go there will not go through the troubles that preceding the coming of Mashiach, which is a different escape like that of repentance, which is only awakened during times of trouble. Although it is not discussed in our study book right now, I think it's important that you understand this stuff. Now in Adil B'Marom, it likens the Zohar to an ark. This part is not in the book. I kept on reading in the part of Adil B'Marom, and I'm sharing this knowledge with you right now. Adil B'Marom is the Ramchal, who, again, it's all based on the Zohar. When the Rashbi entered the cave, he created the ark, just like in the days of Noah. Because of that, he was saved. In the days to come, the last days, all those who cleave to the Zohar will enter this ark that is made up of the good light of creation, the tree of life itself, and will be spared from the troubles to come. To what degree? I have no idea. Everything we are learning says that it will be illuminated in its time. This we can trust. So in the meantime, even though we don't fully grasp the gravity of these hidden things, we have learned that what matters is that we try through the effort that we put into it. This is what the Ramchal says in Dat Tavunot, knowing God's plan. You want to know God's plan? The book's in English, but again, you need a knowledge base to understand it. This is true, he says, that the human beings could have merited through their deeds to know the truth and leave all the false lies of this world for the sake of drawing near to their Creator. But that is only if they have knowledge and understanding. They will see that this world is exactly the opposite of the way God commanded to live. Why do we still see problems that are now currently getting worse? Because God brought something to the world, yes, through the wicked one's manipulation. God controls it all. God brought it to the world. Israel is on the forefront of this. And the thing that everyone here is complaining, both secular Jew and unfortunately Orthodox Jew most, is that people say, I just want to get back to my life. I just want things to go back to how they were. So I'll read this again, what the Ramchal says. But that is only if they have knowledge of understanding, and knowledge and understanding that they will see that this world is exactly the opposite of the way God commanded us to live. So if we are not taking the very clear hints, it's not even hints, this is banging on the door, and you want to go back to where it was, which he clearly says, this is not, I mean, we know this already, but this is just to bolster the point. This world is exactly the opposite of the way God commanded us to live. This world is going to change. It is changing. And the people that want to bring it back and are enforcing all these things, where are they? They have no knowledge or understanding of anything, secular or Orthodox. It doesn't matter. He continues. Nevertheless, they will also understand that this is God's plan who created evil. Thank you, because he created all this, so he could hide within it, so that people should forsake the lies, that their eyes behold and choose the hidden and coded light, the light of the face of the living King. No one is choosing this light, they are choosing this life, which is fleeting. And if they would do so, if only, this is what we're praying for, the unity of God would be revealed to them from within themselves. Every individual that would do this, they got that understanding. Now, could you imagine if all of Israel were in unity like this? Mashiach. And they would be the ones pulling salvation towards themselves. And God would not have to show them the hardships and lengthiness of the exile. But because they saw the truth, that would have been enough? What? Meaning, the moment that you see the truth, tragedy stops becoming tragedy. When you know God's plan, pun intended, then everything is perfect. Oh no, this happened. But you know God's plan. You see God's plan. Right? You're like, yeah, I know. Because he just saved me. Because if I would have gone there, then that would have happened. You see, there is no worry. There is no strife. There's no anxiety. There's no sadness. There's no anger. No hate. No distress. There is only truth. And the truth is perfect peace. Since these individuals, have already seen evil and recognized it as such, today people are like, I trust my government. They wouldn't lie to me. I trust their, what do you call it? Misrad HaBriyut. The what do you call it, guys? The doctors, guys, the doctor who's trust me, I'm a doctor. The scientists too. Whose scientists are you listening to? Who's doctors? Who's that? You're listening to your experts? I'll listen to mine. Thank you very much. Since these individuals have already seen evil and recognized it as such, and choose to leave it. It's hard. But the moment you see it, it becomes very, very easy. The moment you see it, they notice. They notice you noticing them. They notice you seeing them differently. And all of a sudden they turn on you. Just like Jacob said to his wives, your father did not look at me anymore like he did the other day or the day before that. Why? Because now I see him. And he sees that I see him. and choose to leave it and grasp on to the truth of God's unity, by doing so, it would be enough. This would be enough for salvation? What? Because the entire point was for this to be clear to them as a confirmation. And from that point onward, everything to come would be nothing but truth that would see and perceive through, would be seen and be perceived through revelation. Once you see the truth, everything that comes makes perfect sense. Do you understand what I just read? This is how easy it is. And as easy as it is just as depressing, if not more so, as to how off the mark we as a people are, and we as a species are, if you will. All God wants from us is to be able to distinguish between good and evil, because once we see it, there's no way. Once we see the truth, there's no way that you would ever go near evil again. Thereby, by default, we would cleave to the side of good. Once you see it, but today, people think that good is evil and evil is good, and this is exactly what it says. This is why Purim is so important. V'nahafochu. It's all going to be flipped on its head. Everything is a lie today. Once you see that, oh no, they came out with this decree and that decree and this happens and they're going to this and this, all these things that's coming out right now that you're like, wow, this is worse. 70 years ago, Nazi Germany here in Israel. It's right on the brink. It's part of God's plan. It's part of God's plan. God is doing this. Like I said, I don't know when I'm going to go. I pray every day to be able to see Mashiach and to help build Beit HaMikdash. I pray for all of you guys, all the nitzotzot, all the sparks to come in. But I don't know. I'm just doing the best that I can. To be able to distinguish between good and evil, this is the world we live in. We are in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But within this realm, we still have an opportunity to grasp onto the tree of life. That's going to guide us through. If the world did this today, we would not need to be redeemed by God through any great miracles, because we would simply do right on our own. God wouldn't have to abolish evil. We would do it. And so if it's that simple, and yet we walk around as the blind leading the blind, as our world is taking a nosedive, with a jetpack on our back, straight into the pits of hell, or rather bringing it here. This shows you that not only your average non-Torah learning person cannot truly distinguish between good and evil, but those who learn and live Torah as well, who can really distinguish between good and evil. There are, of course, different degrees to this knowledge and understanding, but this is why we have to be so careful. There are different laws of what is right and wrong, morally right and wrong, based on your geography. What's the thing that should never change? It's the Torah. If you cleave to the Torah, that's it. That's your tree of life. Once you start putting everything on top of that, that's a tree of knowledge of good and evil that you are currently putting it on top of. Because if you trust your government and your doctors and your politicians and your friends and your doctors and I said doctors because there's a lot of them, and all the influencers, all the people around, if you trust them and if you listen to them, you by default do not trust God. If you follow this, you'll see exactly what it says. But I can't do this for you. You have to do this for yourself. That's why God is talking about individuals here. If the individuals see, because again, we're all Israel, let's say, but only 20% were necessary to bring the Torah, right? So only 20% are necessary. Some places even say only a tenth are necessary in order to bring the redemption. Where are we at? So like I said, there are different degrees of this knowledge and understanding, but this is why we have to be extremely careful. The moment you forget where you are already lost. The moment you think that this is the real world and this is forever and you're looking just at what's in front of you and not at the big picture, you lost. You're gone. You are part of the system, the matrix. It has you. What did God tell Cain right before he murdered Abel? Cain, whose father was literally Satan. Okay, mother Eve, father Satan. Yeah, that happened. What did God tell Cain, who was still of his creation? It is not so that if you improve, it will be forgiven you. If you do not improve, however, at the entrance sin is lying, and to you it is longing, but you can rule over it. But it doesn't say if you improve. Halo im tetiv. Tiv comes from the word tov. Do good, do better. If you do good, you will be lifted. Se'et, you will be lifted above this. Above what? This world. Above the sin. If you do good, you will be lifted above. You won't even have to navigate. You will be above it all, and you will have a bird's eye view. You will clearly see. And not only for yourself, you can direct people also. Right now, no one's looking up. Where do they want everyone to look? Let me give you a demonstration. Down. Look down. Don't look up, because if you look up, what happens to people who look up? They get taken out, right? What happens if you question? What happens if you start awakening people around you? Wait a minute. We have the numbers. We have the power. What is going on here? How are we letting this happen? See Israel back in Egypt. Same thing. See the story with the ants and the grasshoppers from Bug's Life. Yeah. But if you do not consciously and actively do good, do better, it's not just enough to do, you have to constantly do better. If you don't go up, you go down by default. Polar opposites, everything. This is crouching at the opening. What is this sin that is crouching at the opening? Which opening? The opening of the womb. For from the moment that you take your first breath in the world, you enter the tree of knowledge of good mixed with evil. The moment you forget where you are, you by default cease to do good. Thereby you already chose the other path, that of evil. You see how dangerous this is? I'm not doing anything bad. I'm not doing anything immoral. I'm not doing anything to hurt anybody. Are you aware of where you are? Do you see what you're doing in your life? What is your relationship with God? How are you living your life? You'll see. When you slip up, you do things that are by default off. And this evil, it's not only God-given purpose, but its only function is this reality is to devour you. That's why God created. Devour everything that connects with you. But this dark force, whose sole purpose is to devour the souls of men, can be ruled by even the simplest of us. Now, this is no joke. How do you know that what you believe to be good is in fact good? Now, we've discussed this, right? I think it was Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was crying before he died. And all the great sages, they have a few moments before they die. They're aware that they're going, because they're at such a high level, that they're between this world and the next, and Gan Eden, and then they see things that no person can see, and all their Talmidim gather around them. And they, Rabbi, what do you see? And that's when they start to divulge all these hidden secrets, because they see what they see, which is nothing that they could see here. He says, and he's crying, Rabbi, why are you crying? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai of the lineage of David, what are you crying about? He goes, I see two pathways, one to heaven and one to hell, and I don't know which is which. So how do you know that what you believe with all your heart is good? It's in fact good and not disguised. It's not evil disguised as good. Now, I'm not speaking to those whose soul is rotten or the air of Rav. Don't worry, your time's coming. Or who know that what they do is wrong by deceiving these poor souls who want nothing more than to serve God over all things. Your time is coming too. But I am speaking to the poor souls, and I am making this as simple as possible for you. Poor soul, I am a poor soul, okay? Just trying to do what's right. Just trying, struggling. You have the Torah. And once you familiarize yourself with it, especially the halachot, as in what laws do you need to keep as a Jew, as a Noahide, then no longer will anyone be able to come and sell you the New Testament. Once you know halacha, you know more than them by default, because then you clearly see. And this is what I've seen leaving that place, that anyone who brought these people who say that they're rabbis but are not, halacha, we believe in Jesus. We are above that. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye. It's over. That's called replacement theology. No longer will you drink the Kool-Aid from any fool who calls himself rabbi, but you will know for yourself based on how they speak and their actions if they are for real or not. And still be very careful and still question. You will be able to listen to legitimate rabbis speak. Listen to me now. A guy who's like, for real, a rabbi with the smicha, proper. You'll be able to hear them. You'll be able to hear them speak wisdom. But through that, you will also be able to sniff out the despicable spirit that they carry. What, you think just because a person's a legitimate rabbi makes them a good person? You will be careful of everyone, I tell you right now. God wants this for all those who seek Him. Everyone. As every day that goes by, everything gets more and more corrupt. What does it say in Psalms 145:18? The Lord is near to all who call Him. Oh, wonderful. No, to all who call Him with sincerity. What does the Hebrew say? Karov Adonai lekol korav lekol asher yikra'uhu be'emet. Be'emet, what is emet? In truth. This is our whole discussion right now. Even if you have all the truth in your hands, it could be right in your face, you're still not guaranteed to see it, let alone choose to walk it. And even if you choose to walk it, how do you know that you are not being led astray? If you have even 1 ounce of idolatry, a residue of old false teachings, a thought process that you have been holding on to your whole life, how do you know that your thought process isn't leading you? You understand? Innocently. Seriously, these are questions you have to ask. Then even if you have the Torah before you, as many do, go ahead. Everyone's got it. Your chances of achieving this discernment just drop down to 0. You see? The things we are speaking of means everything. This should not even be something that I need to convince you of. These are things that you should be seeing clearly daily, moment by moment. This is why I said, those of you who are now coming to the group, you saw this on your own. I didn't shed light. I didn't do anything. You saw it on your own, and you're like, hey, this guy's talking about the stuff that I've been through. Right on. Here we are. That's it. You and me. That's what's going on. The secrets that are being shared are a combination of wisdom and understanding. You got to understand this. And just because a person has wisdom, meaning that they know a lot of things, he's a wise man, he knows everything. Okay, great. You got a lot of info. Even if it's a lot of Torah info, it doesn't mean that they have been given the understanding to discern what they learned. You can have, I've seen Christian Torah scholars. They know the whole Torah in Hebrew. They do, but they're understanding this much. Which brings us back to the point of not delving into the secrets if you have no background. And if you do, how do you know that the understanding that you have received is valid? Valid question, right? This is, again, just so you understand the gravity of this, so I'm posing these questions for you that you need to ask. I've spoken to plenty of people who believe that they got it right, and that they know things, that everyone else is wrong, and, they got it right, I know, okay. In very few cases, this could be. But if you take a look at, let's say, the person's knowledge base, you see really limited knowledge base, and the understanding that they supposedly receive is just untrue. Again, this is your discernment. Just because a person uses some flashy words doesn't mean that you should do anything that they say. That this is for you. You have to choose this for yourself. That's why, again, the people that I like dealing with are quality people, not dummies. You guys are not dummies. You have wisdom and you have understanding. And hopefully we could speak a common language. But nothing speaks more to this than a person's walk. Which brings us back to the halacha, by which most Jews don't even follow, unfortunately. Look at what it says in Masechet Chagiga 11b. The Mishnah starts off. This is Talmud, but the Talmud is like, you have a few lines of Mishnah, because the Talmud explains the Mishnah explains the Torah. So in the Talmud, it starts with the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, one may not expound the topic of forbidden sexual relations before 3 or more individuals, nor anyone expound the act of creation and the secrets of the beginning of the world before 2 or more individuals, nor may one expound by oneself the design of the divine chariot, which is a mystical teaching with regard to the ways God conducts the world, unless he is wise and understands most matters on his own. This is what the Mishnah says. Okay? Maaseh Merkava. They have books. I have a book, Maaseh Merkava, that it talks about what is the chariot, right? Okay. Whoever looks at 4 matters, it continues. Whoever looks at 4 matters, it would have been better for him. Whoever looks at 4 matters, it would be better for him had he never entered the world. Anyone who reflects upon what is above the firmament and what is below the earth and what was before creation and what will be after the world, and anyone who has no concern for the honor of his Maker, who inquires into and deals with matters not permitted to him, deserves to have never come into the world. If this is the case, and a very strong warning, then what am I doing here? I mean, we're not necessarily learning all these things, but we are learning the secrets to creation, not what was before, and not necessarily what is after, but just what is going on from the beginning to the end of time as we know it. This is what we're going at, okay? So if this is the case, and some of those things are included in there, then what am I doing here? Or better yet, what are you guys doing here? Or even better yet still, what are we doing here? Okay? The Gemara answers by first posing a question. Posing a good kashya. Here's some pilpul for you. You said in the first clause of the Mishnah, nor may one expound the design of the divine chariot by oneself, which indicates that the topic may not be learned at all, and yet you subsequently said, unless he is wise and understands. Here's your wisdom and understanding. Most things on his own, which indicates that an individual is permitted to study the design of the divine chariot. Concluding with, this is what the Mishnah is saying. One may not expound the topic of forbidden sexual relations. We'll get to the whole sex stuff another time, okay? That's not the focus of this, but it's in there. Sexual relations before 3 students, nor the act of creation before 2, nor may one teach the divine chariot to 1 unless that student was wise and understands on his own. Now, a lot of times in these books, primarily by the Ramchal and the Gra, they conclude with, as I said, vehavenze. In other words, they'll go cryptic. Understand this. What does understand this means? It means if you have this understanding on your own, then you could perfectly make out what I just said. Most of the things that I'm saying today right now, a lot of people can't understand because it's English. Can understand because it's English. It's simple text. I'm trying to give a nice presentation that most people with just a little bit of background can understand. But someone who has 0 background will either take what I'm saying to a completely different direction or not understand anything that I'm saying. Okay, so here's your wisdom and understanding. Now, if this is all we had, then I really wouldn't dare learn this stuff, let alone teach it. But thank God he has given us more info on the matter over the ages. And the interesting thing is the Ramchal and the Gra have never prohibited the learning or teaching of these spiritual secrets. This can be found nowhere. And even more so, they constantly praise all aspects of concerning oneself with this wisdom, like we are learning, and with the rectification of the world that is directly tied to it. The only warning they gave was to pass along these secrets to someone who is not worthy of them, meaning don't do that, okay? Now the question should arise, how do we know who is worthy and who is not? The answer is, in many cases, we don't. How are you really supposed to know? Although some are blatantly obvious cases that, this person should not be speaking, learning, teaching, nothing, right? There are those. But that's your basic understanding and discernment of who is standing in front of you. But the answer can be found in the faithful shepherd. Those who are not worthy of the honor of God, it will be hidden from them. You get it, you don't, no. And then you're going to start making things up, but then watch what happens then later on to that person. As the wise man said, the wise man, that's Solomon in Proverbs 25:2, the honor of God is to conceal a matter, whereas the honor of kings is to search out the matter. God specifically concealed it. Who's a king? Make you a nation of priests and kings. So the only warning we get here is for teaching the wrong people. Nevertheless, you are not supposed to pass along this wisdom without context or background. As the Rashbi warned in the beginning of the Idra Rabbah, the large room, cursed is the man who will create an idol and image in secret. And everyone said, Amen. What is the meaning of this? That from learning these secrets, see, you got to understand something. Actually, I'll just read what I said. I'm not going off script here. Sorry. It's protection for me too. By learning these secrets, that no one even dare, don't let it even cross your mind that you might have perceived any kind of image of God. This is the danger of these things. The Rashbi warns, cursed is this person who builds an image or an idol in secret in regards to learning these things. Now, can you imagine what happens to those who mix New Testament idolatry with these secrets? This is what he was warning from. Who unlocked them 2,000 years ago. So why do we do it? Why am I teaching some of these things openly? Well, because it also says in the Zohar in Parashat Vayera 117a that in the 600 year of the 6 millennia, so again, there's the end of the 5th and the beginning of the 6th, right? So when we are now in 5782, wrong calendar date, but still we're on the end of the 5000s. We are almost at the end of the 6th millennia. In the 600 year of the 6th millennia, which was 300 years ago, the gates of wisdom will open from above and the well springs of wisdom from below. By then the world would have been rectified enough to enter into the 7th millennia, meaning he's talking about by that time, all of a sudden, well, I'll keep reading. As a man who does a rectification from the time the sun begins to set on Friday to welcome the Shabbat. That's why Kabbalistic terms, when it says it's Erev Shabbat, Mashiach comes on Shabbat, right? That's when the world becomes renewed. So when you say it's Erev Shabbat, the sun is setting, it's Erev Shabbat, we are so close. The sun is setting, you feel the Spirit coming over. And what did we learn? What happened at this time? Rashbi wrote this 2,000 years ago. This is the time when the Zohar resurfaced and the age of the luminaries began, from the Ari and the Ramak to the Ramchal and the Gra and countless others. Well, actually, he said 600, so that would be 400 years ago. That's the time of the Ari, the Ramak and the Ari, and then the Ramchal and the Gra was about 300 years ago. These are exactly the times that Rashbi predicted 2,000 years ago that are happening today and that have been happening. Look what opened up. The Rashbi continues on the next page, 118a. It is not the will of God for this wisdom to be openly revealed to the world. But when the world will be close to the days of Mashiach, even the youths of the world will be able to find the secrets of wisdom and to know times of the end and other calculations, because at that time it will be known to all. See, it says in the Talmud, you can't even try and calculate. Anyone who tries to calculate the time, that time eludes him. He's postponing it. But they're taking away what the Rashbi said, because again, they didn't have the Zohar then. The Zohar was only compiled and then hidden, and it popped up later, 1400 years, 1500 years later. So when they said this, they said that if you calculate, you're not allowed to calculate the time of the end. But now that it popped up again, people will. And I believe that some of these great luminaries who passed at such a young age, they knew the time of the end. Why? Their time here was done. They knew they weren't going to be there. They knew that they would come up, and okay, that's when it is. It's all good. A lot of calculations have been made, but we're not sitting here with the calculator or calendar necessarily. Because at that time, it will be known to all. So is it known to all? No, but we're definitely getting there, right? Now, please do not think that when the Rashbi says the youths of the world, think for a minute that he's talking about the whole world, the nefesh, okay? The nefesh of Israel is the world. Because we go back to the statement in Zohar Chadash 8a, that it is Moses who will emerge in these days from among Israel who are immersed within these secrets. What was is what will be, right? And Moses will be again. And so how is this not relevant to the world? The world does not learn the law of Moses. They don't go according to the law of Moses. And what about the Christians who read the Bible that they can read? But we said understanding comes from the inside. And what about the Messianics, some of which have the audacity of actually following, really, the Torah law? Well then, they are being disobedient. Because if they are not Jews, they should not be doing these things. And what about the Jewish Messianics? Surely they will be included among these. Well then, they are worse off than everyone. Why is that? Because they are Jews who are bound by the covenant of Torah, i.e. the law of Moses. And these individuals serve idols, false prophets, false doctrines, and infect others. And these individuals will not be able to stand in the presence of Moses and look him in the face. If you say the law of Moses is done away with, Moses is coming back to bring illumination, you think you're going to stand in front of Moses and say these things? No. How about a Jew who doesn't live by the law of Moses, or who lives by the law of Moses but still doesn't, and brings in idolatry? It's idolatry. It's the 10 Commandments. That's a no-go. If you don't keep the law of Moses, then what is there to talk about here? The law of Moses extends to the Noahides as well, as they are all in the 5 books. Got it right over there. You got the Noahide laws in Parashat Noach. Everyone alive today has a way to honor and respect God from wherever God placed them. Everyone is important. The problem is that people don't want to be where they are. I'm not speaking of converts right now. Like I said, the proof is in the pudding. It's got to be another way to say that. Basically, your actions will speak for themselves. If you make that journey, if you come through, then that's what it is. And if not, then there you are. And that's okay. But you must recognize, because that's where you have to do your tikkun. This wisdom that has been concealed is always the firstly being revealed to Israel, and then through Israel to the rest of the world, those who are obedient. Learning these things should not be taken lightly, as it comes with tremendous responsibility and discipline. There are some books that I have that I only read them on Shabbos, because I need that extra layer of protection. I got to go to the mikveh to purify myself, and I only read them on Shabbat, because these, again, I'm not messing around with any of these things, okay? Maybe I'll share those with you someday too. Maybe, if you have the wisdom and understanding. Anyway, I'm just trying my best here. So you can take solace and encouragement in the fact that since this is happening, and it is, that we are currently in the days of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, who have yet to be revealed, and to return to Moses, to unlock the full understanding of the wisdom that had been sealed until the time of the end. My friends, it's not too long now. See, this is our ark. And it already began to rain. So stick around for next week as we discuss the gathering of the exiles. Talking right at you, so pay attention to that. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great week and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye now.